If there was an oil or gas embargo tomorrow, and again, it's unclear, there's a million discussions on whether they can pay in ruble or not, how much energy does Europe have left?
Well, not much, right? And it's very different between oil and gas, obviously.
Yes.
So for gas, the issue that Europe has is that it cannot substitute all that Russian gas straight away.
Right.
It's as simple as that. For oil, obviously, there are alternatives, and that's because oil can be shipped, and eventually Europe can get gas oil from elsewhere.
So, Massimo, if you're Italy today, if you're Germany today, the countries that are most dependent on Russian gas, what kind of calculations do you do? I mean, the politicians and the companies have a really difficult task to make.
Very difficult task, and you can see how different countries have responded, how difficult that task is, right? So you've heard yesterday OMV, so Austria and Germany, willing to effectively abide to this new payment approach, and Italy on the other side taking its time to see whether there are options. But in reality, right, while again probably Austria and Germany really don't have any other option to substitute that Russian gas, Italy might think it has it, but we don't think actually that is going to be something that they can do, at least in the short term.
There's nothing, there's not like, is there some kind of agreement with Qatar that they can do and get the gas quickly? Can the US and some gas, are there strategic reserves in gas that they can release?
It takes time. Europe is
How much time?
Well, Europe's importing as much LNG as it can at the moment, right? Okay. For new supply to get developed, it takes between 4 and 5 years, right? So until 2025, possibly 26, more LNG supply in Europe compared to what we're seeing now, it's very unlikely.
So is there anything that these countries can do in the next 5 to 6 months?
Well, I mean, I'm afraid for some of these countries, if there is an embargo of Russian gas, the only way is to cut demand, right? And different countries would have different exposure. So we've done some analysis at a European level. If Russia was going to cut supply just now, we think that eventually up to 10% of industrial demand could be cut, right? Yeah. But the dynamic would be very different across different European markets, right? So Italy and Germany will certainly be the most affected, while on the other side, France and the UK might be less affected. But all of them would see extraordinary high prices, much higher than what we're seeing today.
So, Massimo, I've seen a plan actually from Germany and some of the, if you have to ration energy, so they, have gone through sectors and say, right, this sector, for example, this part of the manufacturing, which we could do without, a little bit like what happened in COVID. What would happen in Italy? And actually, do we really, is there a sector that actually needs a lot of gas that we could do without? Or is it, I mean, I know it's not as simple.
Yeah, but I mean, there are ceramics and manufacturing that, need quite a lot of gas, for example, and obviously are not essential to living. But nevertheless, that results in quite a lot of suffering in terms of GDP and industrial growth. So while there are ways to manage it, the implications on GDP could be quite dire. Yeah,
and of course, as opposed to COVID, this is something that is self-imposed by some of the governments. So what do you think they'll end up deciding? Will some of these companies, I think one of the Italian companies also set up an account to be able to pay in rubles.
Again, I think what you will see, it's really dependent on how countries and companies can deal without Russian gas. Again, Italy perhaps has a bit more leeway compared to Germany and Austria, at least at the moment. And so you might see some companies try and do something, right? But again, Edison, for example, has a contract that expires at the end of this year. They might decide to give that away. But Eni still imports more than 20 BCM of gas from Russia. We think it's unlikely that they'll be able to do anything but just go with these payments.
So what do you think Germany will do? I mean, Germany, wasn't against it. This is an oil embargo yesterday, but they said it has to be very gradual.
Yeah, exactly. I think Germany is perhaps in an even worse position than Italy, because again, it's less optionality. So, and I think they've signaled that, right? If you hear what they've said today, they seem to be keen to abide with this payment. Again, the idea is that this payment, the payment in double euros and rubles, doesn't breach eventually sanctions, and that's what they'll have to do, unfortunately.